Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back. I think we are live. Please leave a comment below to let me know that you're watching and that everything is working. All right, so tonight we're doing something completely different. As you can see, no more still life, but a quail. Only because we just finished a challenge on Facebook where you had to paint a quail. So tonight I'm going to show you how I paint one. Don't worry, I'll make it, I'll keep it simple and loose. So let's get started. All right, let me check what's going on here. All right. So because it's different from a fruits, like we're not dealing with circles, you spend more time on the drawing. That's what we're gonna do. So always think about the composition, which means you have to look at the size and the proportions and the shapes to get the composition easily, if not quickly. All right. So I'm going to do a quick sketch. I'm going to try to go slow. You can sketch with a pastel or charcoal or with paint, like I'll do right now. So I'm going to do a light brown to outline the quail. I'm going to keep the background blurry, greenish, dark green, light green, some yellowish, just so it's not important. So if I keep the background blurry, the quail will stand out better. Yeah. Speaking of quail, it's not a California quail. It's actually a picture I took in New Zealand back in 2022. As you can see, they look the same pretty much. All right, let's get started. So as always, my half-inch brush. Let me know if you practice. Let me know in the comment if you practice painting with a big brush or a couple brushes like I do. And I hope you enjoy it. All right, for the composition, always place where things start, where they end, and that's how we're going to get the proportions and the size right. Here on the picture, there's too much room behind the tail, so I'm going to move the tail more to the left. Make sure you leave enough room around the quail, so when you frame it, the head is not like against the edge of the canvas. All right. It's better to start small and make it bigger if it's like too small. You draw what you think, you draw what's there. That's why we rely on the technique. So I know that many of you will be tempted to draw the head first, but then if you do the size of the body, the quail will be either too big or too small, right? So to get the composition and proportion right, you place the size. So here, that's my tail. Here, the beak. Above here, the head. It should be actually lower. And then we're going to place the foot. I leave room on the, I think it was on a fence. leave enough room for the fence. And then the other foot is right here. So that's how I know how big my quail is. Okay. That's you can do this painting multiple times and decide if you want to make it bigger or smaller. But we're doing we keep it simple, and we keep the whole process simple. Okay, so here, let's connect the tail to the head. So I'm just doing basic shapes. See, I'm not thinking about the dent on the neck there. I connect with a 45-degree angle line the tail to the head. Next, if I connect the tail to the leg, how do I know where the leg is? Right? Well, we know that the leg is a little bit above. The top of the leg is a little bit above the fence. So it's somewhere here, but where on this side? So to find easily, you look at, imagine we trace a vertical line. You can use a ruler or your brush. And can you see that the top of the leg lines up with the neck? Okay. So it's going to be right there. But you also want to double check. How do you find the neck? Well, the head is about a quarter from the body. Okay, let's say here you have a quarter, half of the body, 3/4 of the body, and then the other tail. So you can eyeball. Let me double check. One, yeah, quarter, half, 3/4. So once I found where the neck is, I imagine a vertical line, and that's where I find the top of the leg. It's very technical, but that's how, trust me, that's how you get the composition, the proportions, and the size right. Here it's just a quail, but imagine there's something more in the background or another quail here. So you need to get this right. And it's okay if it takes you 1 hour. Okay? But you want to understand that, so it will be easier and easier. All right, so now I'm going to connect the tail to the top of the leg. Right? It's a slightly slanted line. Right? So also to find an angle, you can do that on your reference photo, either on your screen or on a print. If you paint something else, and then you report the same angle onto your surface. Right? So imagine you do that on your reference photo, you report the same angle. So I'm going to give you another minute. So double check the top of the head, the right of the head, the left, the bottom. You cannot go wrong if you follow this technique. You'll thank me later. Okay, so it's not gonna be perfect, right? But it really helps placing the proportions, right? So you can go, of course, a little bit above your marks, right? Or your dots. All right, so now let's do the head, right? I'm gonna cut the neck across so I know how big the head is, right? The beak doesn't protrude too much from the head, so the forehead and the head really is going to be right there. Now let's connect the neck, the chest, the belly to the top of the leg. As you do that, always check the whole body to keep the proportions in mind. Right? So it's more like eyeballing. Obviously, the chest is in. It doesn't line up with the beak. So I'm just going to draw a short vertical line. And the chest and the belly, they are not parallel to the back. Okay, it's a slightly different angle. Okay? Not to mention that the back is bumpy. Okay? So the bump will be above my slanted line, right? Not in. Otherwise, it's going to make the body smaller. Right? So I will sketch it out. So I'll just trace a slanted line. I will sketch better the bumps on the belly, on the back, not really at the bottom. So let's finish the head and the neck. So the back of the head is rounded, so that creates a dent on the back of the neck. Again, it's technical. I know you're dying to draw the head, the wing, the whole bird, but if you follow this process, you cannot go wrong. You want to nail the drawing. It will make the painting process much easier. Instead of realizing in the middle of your painting that your proportions are off and the composition is not right. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to check what you did. The body. Make sure that it's bigger than the head. The head is very small, actually. Excuse me. All right. So next I'm going to draw the back. It's bumpy. It's a little bump. Yeah, it's not a circle. So let's keep it small. Something like that. And then it goes to the tail. Here it's easy. It's really like a straight line. The head is not like an oval here. There's one neck in. So I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit the reference photo is a little bit small here, but you have the chest and the belly, and there's a dent. Right? So how do I find the dent? Well, look, it's very easy. It's basically halfway between the top of the leg and the neck. So that's put the bottom of the chest right there. Now, what's the next big shape? It's the wing. Right? How do I find the top of the wing? I mean the shoulder. Right? Well, look. The shoulder is behind the neck. Okay? If you trace a vertical line, it's behind the neck on that line. Now there's the top, I mean the right side, and how do I find where it starts? If I imagine an horizontal line, it lines up with the middle of the chest. The chest being here, okay? That's how I find the shoulder. After that, it's easy. You know where the wing ends. You know where it starts. So just trace a straight line. So I like this picture because the quail is not just standing, it's walking. It's more interesting. All right, so I'm gonna let you double check what you're doing or what you did. How big is the body? How big is the head? You check the distance between the tail and the head, the tail and the top of the leg. And from the head, how the angle of the chest, okay, the belly. All right, so I just need now to sketch the legs before we start painting. All right, so I have to draw the right size for the legs. You know where it starts, okay? And where does the foot end? So the claws line up with the chest on a vertical line. Technically, they're a little bit beyond, but we keep things simple. You have your vertical line, and that's where the claws are. If you look closely, the length of the leg is the same length as the foot. So I just trace one slanted line and an horizontal line. It's just for the proportion. Okay, the other leg is not easy to see because it's in a shade, but where does the top of the leg start? You look at the distance between the leg, the tail and the other leg, and the second leg is right halfway. You see that? Half, half. So because it's in the shade, I will simplify probably the foot, the fingers. It's going to be something like that, the same length. So all this, again, is to get the composition and the proportions easily, if not quickly. I hope that makes sense. All the details, the bumps, the dents, you can draw that precisely if you're into a realistic quail. If not, there's going to be a lot of suggestion. And as you paint, you can make adjustments here and there. But I know that this is good or good enough for tonight's project. I'm going to paint the beak, although I will paint it last because that's a small element. Again, I make sure I have enough room around the body. And before I start painting, I'm going to sketch the fence. Right? So again, where does it start? Okay. It's about a quarter from the bottom. Okay. Quarter, half, quarter. Okay. And then on this side, it's going to be like 1/8 of an inch. 1/8. Basically, it's half. Right? So now I can connect the left side to the leg, to the second leg, and to the right side. To make the legs, the feet stand out, I might actually pin the fence behind, so a little bit above. You have artistic license all the time. Right? You can change things, remove things. That's why I'm going to paint now the background, very fuzzy, so the quail stands out. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to double check your drawing. Composition, enough fence, enough background around the quail. Double check the size of the body. And the head, that is just only a quarter of the whole body, roughly. All right. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Let's see. Checking my channel here. All right, let's paint the background, shall we? So it's not, I don't want it to just a greenish background. I'm still gonna paint the darks and the lights and the medium. Basically, I blur the picture, but I keep the shapes or the structure of the foliage behind the quail. See, I know that if I paint dark above the back, the back being lighter, it will stand out. Like so. So the background is not, it's very easy. So here, I will change it to make the head that is darker. I'm going to paint the background lighter. So you can see the beak and the feather from the stemming from the foreground. That's the only thing I would change on the background. So as you know, I teach you how to paint with 3 colors only. But if you do a lot of landscapes, you probably want to have another shade of yellow. This cadmium yellow, but you could have lemon yellow, a lighter blue, like either cobalt or cerulean, to have different shades of green. Like here, and in the corner, you have a bright green. Right? So I'm going to use more white and yellow to make my green brighter. And only then, if I don't get the green I want, I will buy a lighter green or yellow or any other color. But play with paint. Oops, sorry. Play with the cards you have. You're gonna learn a lot more. I'm reconnecting my phone here. Now you can spend more time. As I do this, you can paint, you can still work on your drawing if you're not ready. You can even paint the background later. As you can see, it's not rocket science. I'm just basically splashing the canvas with different shades of green. You can paint the background later, right? Make sure your drawing is right or good enough. As I do that, you have more time to refine your drawing. You can make the background even more blurry. Let's make it lighter. Okay? This side. To keep everything loose, paint with a big brush. So you won't be tempted to paint small lines, small dots, all the details. And practice mixing your colors on the canvas. That's where the magic happens, and not on your palette. Alright, a few more strokes, and then we're gonna start painting the quail, right? I want to paint above the fence, between the legs, so it should be easier to focus on the body. So to paint the quail, it's going to be the same process. I'm going to paint a base color for the body. And then paint better the feathers to show the structure. There you go. That's good enough. Okay, so if you can stop right there, if you're in the middle of the foliage, we're gonna paint the quail now. Right. So it's not just one base color, right? It's basically brownish on the left side and grayish on the right side. So let's do a light brown. Sorry, so blue and yellow, like the green, and if I add red, I have brown. And then let's use white to make it lighter. It's a dirty brown. I need more red. All right, that's better. So I paint the left side, but I don't want to lose the shoulder, right? So that's for the wing. So I paint a little bit of highlight right there to give dimension to the wing. Under the wing, you have a darker brown. So yellow, blue, and red. Oh, it's probably too dark, so I'm going to add more red. So I paint the dark brown, okay? And I'm adding a little bit of white to make it slightly lighter, so it's not just one solid color. Okay? It's a darker brown, darker than the wing, but still not too dark. So I don't paint a solid color. See how I move my strokes to create color variations and textures. Right, so now we can see the wing, the bottom. Okay. Here, let's add a little bit of brown for the shadow of the shoulder. Right. While I'm at it, let's paint the top of the head. It is brown as well. And with a highlight on the very top. If it doesn't stand out enough, I will paint the background darker. All right. Okay, so I'm still with my my dark colors. I'm going to paint the neck. So it's almost black. So I'm doing a dark brown, really. I mean a dark gray. So I'm adding more blue to my brown. And it's too dark. But that's the neck. Okay. I will use a smaller brush for the details. Now I rinse my brush because I'm going to paint this side that is grayish. So I have my dark gray here. I'm going to use just a little bit and use a lot of white There you go. That's a nice gray. A little bit bluish, so I'm going to add more brown to tone it down. So again, I don't paint just a solid color. Right? I move my brush around to create nice textures for the feathers. I work on the impression of the feathers rather than painting the details. Back of the head is grayish as well, so I'll work on that. So this part here, it's a light brownish. Well, basically, I mean, technically it's brown, but it's covered with white feathers. Okay? So that's why it looks like a light brown. So since tonight we suggest a lot, we're gonna go by the impression. In other words, playing with the color variations and not so much painting the details. Right? So if you paint in different directions, that's how you get the illusion of that's how you give dimension to the body and the illusion, the impression of the feathers. Don't forget to take a picture of your painting or do a screenshot so you remember how you started, the changes you made, and the different colors and textures, shadows, highlights. Okay. That's good, I think. I'm going to paint the background darker. Here. So the legs stand out more because they're like light gray. And then I also paint behind the neck and the head. And a little bit the back, so it stands out. All right, let's paint the fence. And then we'll tackle the body. It's easier than you think. What was important here is the drawing, right? The proportions on the for the quail. So it's not too small, not too big. And then you practice again a fuzzy background, a foliage. And if you watched my previous videos, you should know by now how to paint a wooden surface. Right? It's a similar process. It's just brighter and lighter because it was a sunny day. So it's not like a cutting board in my previous videos. So I'm doing the same thing I did on the feathers, the body. I pin different colors, and then I will just use white to show that's a bright light in this scene. So I'm not painting white all over, it's not just a solid color. Different strokes, like so, to suggest the texture of the fence, the wooden texture of the fence. So the colors are probably different on your screen. I see a little bit of yellow on the fence. On the screen is like very white. I don't want that. It's almost like an off-white. So I'm adding some yellow to make it warmer. Let's add more textures. So you could practice these strokes for hours. Right. You don't have to be done tonight. If you think there's some adjustments you need to make later or tomorrow, feel free to do so. Right. I'm going to connect the fence to the background. Keep it loose. And now it's time to pin the quail, right? Right, so switching to a 1/4 inch brush. And let's work on the head. I'm going to paint the whole face brownish. The forehead, it's a lighter brown. So I'm just adding white directly on the canvas. I'm going to outline the white pattern here. I will paint the white next, but I want to build the structure of the face. So this line starts from the eye. There's a cut. And then you have another white line across, and then brown. The top is brown, okay, but the very top is highlighted. That's why it's lighter. Let's finish the back of the head. It's gray. And the gray is also on the wing in the back. It's because of the lighting. All right, so I hope you're following. All right. So let's finish the patterns on the head. Just white. Like so. You have the white, the cheek. This goes below the neck. Let's make this brighter. Okay, I'm gonna work on the feathers on the body, and then we'll paint the head last. So I need a second pass on the chest. I'm gonna make it slightly darker gray. I see too much of the base color showing through. And then to create the illusion of the feathers, I'm going to paint highlights in white or light gray on this part. Here it's more precise. I mean smaller, so my stroke would be more precise, but it's going to be the same technique. All right. Don't give up. We're almost there. So I'm giving you a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to adjust the background. Okay. You can keep working on the body, but I want the neck to stand out more. So I'm going to paint a lighter green and also adjust the shape of the neck. The beak is too big. So that's a better shape for the neck. And this will be darker around the head. It will be darker. You don't outline it like it's, like it's done on purpose. Just a few strokes to dark enough and light enough to so you can see the head better. And then of course here, the sticking feather, I'm gonna make it lighter so it shows. Otherwise, it's dark against dark. Let's make it darker as well. All right, let's go back to the feathers on the chest. So I'm painting a light gray, almost white. And to suggest the feathers, just a few strokes like that. So the dark gray between my strokes. Make it look like big feathers. Let's do a few more here. All right. So I need to make the back of the head darker actually. And then I will paint short, small strokes right there to suggest the feathers. If it's not dark enough, the small feathers won't show. I rinse my brush. And let's paint those little feathers. So not just white, a light gray, the same gray I used for the chest right there. A small brush, not too small. I keep the same brush. Paint. So don't make it too detailed because it's a loose painting. Right? You don't want them to be like perfect lines, and everything else is not as detailed. You just want enough contrast with the brownish underneath, so it reads as small feathers. Like so. Make a few more above the shoulder. All right, that's enough. And The back is the same. It's the same thing actually. You have brown and then white feathers. And it's suggested by the highlights on the back. So nothing too detailed, just enough so it stands out from the background. So you can see that my green is very different. The green on the background is very different from the reference photo, but it works. It's just a warmer mood. Now, guess what? I'm going to do the same work on the wing. Okay. I have my base color, and I'm going to play with dark brownish textures and lighter brown textures. So let's get a brownish that has a little bit of yellow. There you go, it should work. So similar strokes like I did on the chest. That gives more texture to the wing. Gives it more dimension. So I have the impression of a wing. And then now a slightly darker brown for the shoulder and some textures right there on the wing. All right, let's finish the wing and the tail. Before the bottom of the body here. So basically it's a brown body, okay, on the top of which you have like lines, white lines. Okay, let's make it more brown. It's darker brown right there. Same technique, right? Big strokes to create the textures of the feathers. And the white lines, the white patterns will give more dimension to the body. And that gives the right structure. Alright, so like I did on the neck, a few lines. It's not as bright because it's in the shade. Of course, you don't have to count how many lines are there exactly. You could, but you don't have to. There we go. It doesn't have to be precise. Like so. So right there, right under the wing, it's brighter. The light hits this part of the body, so this pattern here outline the bottom of the wing, so it stands out more. And let's finish this side. All right, I think that's enough. So here we can do the opposite actually. All right, we're going to paint white or light, and then we're going to paint, we're going to use brown. If you already have brown here, that's fine. You can do the white patterns, right? But I just want to show you a different way. The result is the same. It just the white feathers on top of a brownish base color. It's like mini smiles, small smiles. I need to make the bottom here a little bit bigger. White patterns here. All right, let's do the legs, and then we'll finish with the face. All right. I hope you're following, that you're learning something. Obviously, it's more complex than peaches, apples, tomatoes. And I hope you're having fun still. All right. So it's grayish. I should have done that. I should have done my gray first. All right, I have my gray, now my white. So just one line, right? Because we're keeping it simple and loose. One line for the leg. One fat line for the fingers. Here, the leg in the background, it's in a shade, so it's a darker gray. You barely see it actually. Here you have the shadow of the body on the leg. And we're going to use brown in the bottom of the fingers. Okay? We suggest that it's standing on the fence. Something like that. Because it's hard to see, it should be something like that. It almost blends with the fence, so it's hard to show that better. Highlights. You have the back that is darker. Okay, that's a good impression of the foot. Now let's paint the shadow, and then we'll finish with the head. It has some greenish tones to. So about that, I move the camera. So it's not just gray, it has some greenish. So the shadow, it lines up with the end of the tail, okay, and it ends under the belly. All right, that's good enough. I want more highlights on the fence right there. All right, small brush. The forehead is highlighted. Very top of the head, highlighted. So you have the white around the eye, below the eye, and above above the beak. So it's like that. And on top of the beak, right there. All right. Sorry about that. We're back. You can see my palette and you can hear me. All right, we're almost done. To make a couple of adjustments here. So the background is fine. I'm not gonna do much more than that because it's not the right green. And then, although I like my green, but I don't need more detail than that. So it can be just fine as it is. All right, I think I'm done. I'm ready to sign. Tomorrow I will post on our Facebook page the finished painting. So you'll see all the details. I will give the link in the first comment down below. I hope you learned something. Please send me your version of this Quail, and then I will see you next Wednesday.